Congratulations on the film. I sat down and watched it last night after you sent it through, and it's an amazing drama. So congratulations.
Oh, wow. Thanks, David. That's lovely, mate. Thank you.
So Adam, tell us a little bit about this film and how it came into being, but also tell us a little bit about yourself as a filmmaker. This is your debut film, so I'm sure our listeners would love to know a little bit about your journey as a filmmaker as well.
Yeah, I haven't made. Yeah, this was my first film. So before that, I was working as an author and a musician. So in 2020, when the pandemic hit, all my music work kind of evaporated overnight. And I had a new novel that had just come out, Bird, which was nominated for Miles Franklin, and we were going to do a big, long book tour where I was going to travel around and play some music and release the book on a tour. And that all got shut down. So I was kind of just stuck with nothing to do whatsoever in WA. And then I thought, well, I've always wanted to make a film. Film was my first love as an artist. So since the age of 16, I've always wanted to make a film. I'm like 42 now. So I just thought, well, we may as well give this a go because I'm only getting older and death is coming. So let's give it a go. So that's what we ended up doing. And then Chloe Hurst, who stars in Edward and Isabella, she was home from Los Angeles where she normally works, and she was home because of the pandemic as well. So she was kind of in a similar position, and then we accidentally found each other on a casting call through Facebook. So that's how it started.
You said that being a filmmaker has always been your dream since you were 16 years old. What were the films that you were watching back then that started you on that journey of wanting to be a filmmaker?
Oh, yeah, I was watching probably very different films than Edward and Isabella. I was really into Gary Oldman's Nil by Mouth and films like State of Grace and King of New York and Reservoir Dogs and Taxi Driver and those kind of intense movies that teenage young men get into. So the idea that I would make a romantic drama is not what I thought when I was 16. So a very, very different style of film. But I also grew up kind of pre-internet. I was probably one of the last generations of people to go through high school without the internet in 1996. So I got a lot of my film food from SBS. So you get a lot of Roman Polanski, Bernardo Bertolucci, Robert Altman, Woody Allen, all the kind of European good stuff as well. But you would just get it as they gave it to you. So you'd be watching SBS, and sometimes you'd walk in halfway through a screening of, at the time, some obscure Werner Herzog movie that you didn't have any idea what it was. It was the most interesting thing available at that time.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a coupling of all those kinds of influences.
A lot of the younger generation don't know what that's like. I was the same. I remember in year 12, they offered us a class called Learning the Internet, and I just figured it was going to be some kind of fad, so I never bothered doing that class like it was an elective. But I was the same as you. My film knowledge all came from going into a video library on a Friday night and taking advantage of the 5 for $10 deal, or watching the Ivan Hutchison Presents on TV and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ivan. I missed it. I don't know Ivan. I know David and Margaret, David Stratton and Margaret Pomerantz. They were probably my version of Ivan. I'll have to look up Ivan now, David.
Yeah, Ivan Hutchison was a famous Australian film critic, but he used to do a television show on Channel 10 that was like Bill Collins' show, where they would literally say Ivan Hutchison Presents, and then he would bring out a classic film that he enjoyed, and they would screen it on TV.
Yeah, I definitely remember Bill Collins. I'll look up Ivan and see if I remember him. We had that same video shop that you had. We probably went to the same one, David. $7 for 7 videos, or $10 for a new release, but then you had to walk back the next day and bring the new release back. So you usually went for the 7 and 7. For some miracle, we had an amazing independent video shop in where I grew up, and yeah, they just had. You could go there and get, you could get Police Academy 4, but you could also get Citizen Kane, or you could get David Lynch movies, and so yeah, it was a different era, and you had to work very hard to watch good films.
Definitely. So Adam, you mentioned before that Edward and Isabella is very different to the film that you thought that you would probably have as a debut film. Where did the idea for the film actually start for you?
I was on just before I got back from just before I got back to Australia, before the pandemic hit. I was visiting a friend in Germany, and we were going on a train from Germany to Poland. We were going to visit Auschwitz, and then I just, for some reason, started to play around with this idea of writing a screenplay. This is before the pandemic, so I didn't really know what I was even going to do with it. And I really don't know how it came about. I think I was trying to write something that I could film quite easily, so it only had to have like 2 characters in it. So it could have been any kind of relationship drama. And I think I just kind of landed on the relationship drama. But it could have been a father and son story, or a platonic male story, or it could have been anything. But just happened to go with that, David. I don't really know where it came from.
I've always marveled at writers who are able to jump across different formats. Like Ray Mooney has been able here in Melbourne has been able to do theatre, novel, and also screenplay. How did you find that experience? Did you find writing a screenplay different to writing a novel?
It is very different, and this will sound insane, but it's also very, very similar at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a lot more space in a screenplay, and there's a lot more space in your head. I found when you're writing a screenplay, just on a technical issue, there's a lot less words. Like you're dealing with 20,000 words instead of 120,000 words for a novel. So you've got less actual physical work to do. You've got a lot more thinking to do, so you've got a lot more time and space. So it's quite a playful art form, as opposed to the novel. That when you're writing a novel, whatever you write down, what you hand into your publisher is going to be 95% of what the reader picks up to read. So you have to be extremely careful about every single choice that you make. Whereas with a screenplay, you're really writing the first draft of 3 passes at it, because you're going to write it, then you're going to rewrite it with the actors when you film it, and then you're going to rewrite it again when you're editing it. Even if you shoot it word for word, it's going to change drastically. And then, because it's a film, you're going to throw another dozen different art forms at the end of it before it turns into the final product. So what you write as a screenplay really is only 25% of what the audience sits down to watch when they're watching the film. Hopefully in a large sold out cinema somewhere in Melbourne and Sydney, David.
Definitely.
So it's more of a meditative art. I found the screenplay. You could write 5 or 6 pages, and then you could walk away from it for a week or 2 and go for a swim and sit in a spa and stare at the ceiling and go, oh, this might be nice, this might be nice. And of course, you can only hint at all the visuals. So when you say they walk up a mountain, like that's the end of that scene, but then you have to film that scene, and you have to find on that mountain, you've got to find all the images that you want to use. So even as a screenwriter, what you imagine when you're actually on the ground filming and shooting, it's just a completely different world. So you get to almost suggest to yourself what it might possibly be as a screenwriter, and there's a lot of freedom and fun in that approach.
Definitely. And Adam, you mentioned before about how you discovered Chloe Hurst. Was she the first person that you cast for the film? And if so, did you kind of build the rest of the cast around her, especially with Daniel Barwick?
I was originally just going to make a film very, very small film with just some unknown actors because our budget was so small, David. So when someone of Chloe's caliber came on board, it kind of changed the whole landscape of the film. We actually had some of our crew pull out when Chloe signed on because it was just too much pressure for them because they thought I'd asked them to come and help me make a film, and they just signed on for this might be a bit of fun. But when they heard Chloe was coming, they were like, oh no, I can't. There's no way I can do this out of my car. So it changed everything. And then we certainly did. We built the other cast around Chloe. I mean, she's so brilliant, and it was such a nice surprise to see her audition come through. So, but it was just incredible.
And how did you discover Daniel? Because of course, part of the magic of this film is that the magic and chemistry that's between Chloe and Daniel with their characters Edward and Isabella. So, how did you go about discovering Daniel?
One of the most fun parts about making film is the casting process. So we went through about 100 auditions before we landed on Daniel. I think it was Stanley Kubrick said casting was 80% of directing, and from my limited experience, I think that's definitely true. Daniel sent in an audition tape. He didn't actually have any words. He was doing interpretive dance in a quarry with a smoke machine for a video clip. And he looked like Farley Granger from Strangers on a Train. He was all dressed in black and had an old-fashioned haircut. And I liked the way he looked, and I liked how comfortable he was doing really kind of silly, interpretive, slow-motion dance moves. And then I sent him some pages. Then he sent another audition back with some readings, and then he was shortlisted in the top 3. And then we did some chemistry tests with all 3 male potential leads with Chloe separately up in Perth, and you could just the chemistry between the two of them was kind of instant. So it was just. I found, David, that throughout all these choices that you make as a filmmaker, because it's the art form that's got 15 other art forms inside it, every time you jump to the next art form, it just becomes obvious what the choice should be.
Yep.
So when you're editing, say, that mountain climbing scene, we were trying all different music behind it. We tried some indigenous music, we tried some kind of disturbing pop music, and then we tried some Italian opera, and the Italian opera, you could tell instantly, that's what should be there, that works. And it was the same with Daniel when you watched him with Chloe. It was like, oh no, that's the one. It's just it's a long and it's a fun process. It's a bit uncomfortable when you have to tell so many people no, and you can only tell 1 or 2 people yes. That's probably the hardest part of it.
Yep.
But the last thing you want to do is when you're on set is to have to pull someone aside who's not getting the scene and talk to them for 3 hours about their character's upbringing and their past relationships with their father. Like, you want someone that's already 90% got it before they even walk on set. And Daniel and Chloe both had that in spades.
Yeah, you can definitely see that on the screen. And of course, you filmed this during a pandemic. What kind of challenges did that provide for you on set?
Well, it was West Australian pandemic, David, so we've just had a very different experience than I think probably most of the world. As long as you weren't, we didn't really even have much social distancing restrictions here. So as long as you hadn't been out of the state, which you couldn't get in and out of the state, really. So
yep.
It was kind of just life as normal down here, so it wasn't, that didn't pose much of a challenge.
So now
other than the fact we had the actors trapped in the States, that was great.
Yeah. Yeah. So now the big question, where can people see Edward and Isabella, and what would you like to say to people before they go out and check out the film?
If you're in Melbourne and Sydney, it's playing on September 10th and September 11th. It's playing at the Ritz Cinema in Sydney, and it's playing at the Lido Cinema in Melbourne. It's also playing at the Glenbrook Cinema, which is in the Blue Mountains. And it's playing at the Luna Cinema in Leederville, if you're in Western Australia. And it's playing at a bunch of regional cinemas in WA at the moment. We just had a review from David Stratton last week in The Australian, so we're hoping we'll be adding some more cinema dates, but they're the dates coming up at the moment. The Lunar Leaderville is August 11th, which is today. Oh, okay, that's handy. And yeah, times and dates, if you just hop on the Edward and Isabella Facebook page, it'll have some more information on there. And advice I give, I just bring quiet confectionery. Don't bring crackly, noisy confectionery to the cinema, please. That's all I've been